The webinar today is hosted by Digistor. Digistor is an Australian solutions supplier. We provide technically integrated solutions across this whole range of application areas, and there's just a few of them on the screen that we address. If you are interested in any of these areas and you need assistance in any of these areas, then please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. We represent and have close working relationships with the world's leading manufacturers in the areas that we address and integrate those manufacturers into complete solutions. We are introducing a special offer for Cantemo Portal to seminar attendees today. If you are in a position where you're looking at introducing a media asset management system to your organization, then please get in touch with us, because it's a great offer until the end of April for orders placed at Digistore until the end of April. I'll include those details in the follow-up email as well, so you have a record of those and you can get in touch with us to discuss. I'd now like to pass the presentation over to Jimmy in Sweden from Cantemo, and he can take over the presentation from here. So just let me organize that. Jimmy, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
We should be able to see your screen.
So, can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
So, my name is Jimmy. I'm the CTO of Cantemo, and I will tell you a little bit about what Cantemo is and what we do, and why we started this company in the first place. So, from day one, when we started this company, our mission was to deliver a media asset management system that would allow customers to start small, but still be able to think big and be able to scale up the system later on. And I will tell you a little bit more about how we're able to achieve that later on. So, we are a software business, and we build software for businesses that want to manage the digital content. It doesn't necessarily mean that the customer is a media customer itself, but they have interest in managing their video and media, so to speak. And I think what distinguishes us from a little bit from other media asset management providers is that we focus on solving the generic and fundamental problems in media asset management. And rather than building tailored end-to-end workflows. However, there's still customers that need and want tailored end-to-end workflows, and we have a solution for that as well. And that's why we have built a complete tool set where you're able to expand and tailor the current solution that we have to the customers' needs. We make Cantemo Portal currently available through partners only. And for Australia, Digistor is of course our main channel. There are, as of today, two different editions of Portal. There is a Portal Standard, which is for small and medium enterprises, but there is also an enterprise version that is based on the exactly same technology platforms for larger organizations. And since it is so easy to upgrade from standard to enterprise, it actually allows you to start small, think big, and scale fast later on. And all of this and the product that we have built, we call Cantemo Portal. So Cantemo Portal, and together with its apps, already supports most workflows from ingest to archive. We have, for example, annotation tool and a rough cut editor. We have very advanced metadata support and search and browsing. So everything of the usual that you would expect, and actually a little bit more than that. So the core that we have built solves the broad and cross-market challenges in media asset management. And by focusing on what's broad and cross-market, we're able to keep the core lean and mean, so to speak, but also commercially, we're able to offer this at a reasonable price. And while we do that, we still have one of the most comprehensive lists of format support in the industry, for example. The solution that you will see later on, that Tim will present you, it is fully web-based, so there's no client installation. It is a very clean and an intuitive UI, as you will see later on. And on top of that, we have a comprehensive and full-fledged extension layer around the core, where system integrators or customers that have their own development resources actually can extend the solution even more. So we provide an extension layer around our core that is a well-documented API with a set of open libraries. And this allows really anybody to build new features on top of the core, but also to create new integration points of third-party solution. For bigger customers, maybe to some of your own homegrown systems or something like that. But you're also available to override existing behavior in the core and to tailor fit it to your needs. You are able to fine-tune and completely redesign the user interface. We call that theming. And it goes a little bit beyond what is just changing colors and buttons. You can actually reskin and redo the entire user interface if you want to. And in terms of the APIs, we eat our own dog food. And what we mean by that is that all the APIs that we have built, we use them ourselves while we build our own apps. So there are no quick routes that we take while we develop our apps. We use the exactly same interface as our integrators would do, which means that the apps that we have built, some of them you will see later on in this presentation, are actually showcases of what somebody else could have built on top of the solution. So our continued strategy for the future is, of course, to continue to develop and refine the core. But we will also keep to develop more essential apps, such as, for example, the annotation tool and the rough cut editor. We will continue to develop solid integration apps with established products in the creative space. And two of those integration Tim will show you later on, which is Premiere and Final Cut. And we hope to make this integration specifically with those two products even tighter in future. But we also hope to extend that list with additional products. We currently team up with strategic partners to build a global ecosystem to actually deliver these solutions. And there are different types of partners. While most of them are system integrators or resellers, there are some partners that are focused on only providing development resources if needed, and there's some of them only providing training, for example. So this ecosystem that I talk about, it's really important to our customers, especially for customers that are a far distance away from us, because what it means is that a local system integrator will be able to run the project with their own timeline without being dependent on us. And this they can do because we have this great API where you can do everything that you need to do, basically, without involving us. But of course, we are training and are supporting our partners in extending, supporting, and customize the solution. We have today partners virtually in every region of the world. So I wanted to come back a little bit on what I told you previously on that we wanted to solve the core and fundamental problems of media asset management. And one of the reasons to do that is that we wanted to target as broad customer base as possible. And if you look at our customer base today, I think we have actually been able to achieve that. And among post houses, ad agencies, and broadcasters, you will find other types of customers, like, for example, universities, the manufacturing industries, power plants, streaming services, banks, and churches. So it's really a broad scope of different types of customers. And the largest installation that exists of Cantemo Portal today, which is an enterprise installation. It has over 1,000 registered users. They have a automated high availability, including load balancing. And they have millions of assets. They have hundreds and hundreds of NLEs. And they have a transcode clusters, which is currently, I think, 30 or 40 servers. So you can start really, really small, and you can scale it at least this big, probably a lot bigger. And this was actually everything that I wanted to tell you for today. And I will hand over to my friend Tim, who will start to actually demonstrate and show what the solution does. So, Mark, will you hand over to Tim?
I think you need to hand. Oh, do I need to? Oh, yes, I need to. So just one moment.
Actually, I can do it as well.
You can do it.
Sorry.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. So I'm going to be showing Cantemo Portal, the media asset management system, the core product, and then on top of that I'm going to be showing our NLE integration with Adobe Premiere Pro. I'm then going to move on to one of our apps that we've created, the Rough Cut Editor, and then another NLE, Final Cut Pro 10, and then finally I'll be showing some of the annotation tool, another app. As Jimmy was saying, the Cantemo Portal is a web-based digital asset management system. It works with and takes advantage of HTML5 technologies and modern web browsers. You can deploy it on your own hardware, either in your own office or in a co-location facility. It can be internal on your network, can be secured over a VPN or opened up to clients on the internet. And basic configurations need no installations on client machines. The core system can be extended by using the theming system that Jimmy was describing. You can change the logo to changing everything, the look and feel and so forth. And the rich API that he was also describing enables plug-in interfaces to create apps, and those are a couple of things I'm going to be showing you as well. We create our own apps, and also our partners have created apps that you can purchase, and we have other people creating apps for particular instances. So I'm going to log in as an admin user. This gives me access to absolutely everything on the system, all the menus and functionality that you can see here, and allows me to give you a complete demo. But users and groups have a very strong need in media asset management, and we're no different in that fact. We have very strong support for users and groups. Users and groups and the roles they have are at the heart of the system, really. We have an app that will let you integrate with external directory systems, but in the core product, they can be created from the admin interface. For example, groups can be created in the admin interface. These could match up to groups in your organization of users, roles that they may have, or they could match up to groups of clients that you might want to use or log in onto the system to show. Or it could be a mixture of both. It really doesn't matter. But generally, you will group users together in these groups. Here I'm showing a detail page of a group. And one of the most important things to know about this is that with groups, you can apply roles to the group. And this lets you control the functionality within the system. Who can read collections, who can read metadata, who can ingest into the system, who can do searches, who is able to write, who's able to delete things. And once you have the roles set up on the groups, the users within that group inherit from that. So, going into the users, I have an overview of the users on the system. I could add a new user, but I'll show you one of the existing ones now. So we've defined some basic details of the user themselves, first name, last name, email, that kind of thing. But also we can choose which groups that user is a member of. And of course by choosing that, it means that they then get those functionalities added to them. And you can have multiple groups upon the user themselves. The admin functionality can also be added to individual users, so you might have certain users that have access to everything, or you can limit that down. Now, another fundamental thing with the users in groups is the access control lists that can be applied on entities within the system. The access control lists use the users and groups to say who's allowed access to what media, who's allowed access to collections of the media, who's allowed to see this, who's allowed to manipulate this, and it creates a very, very secure system. Different users and groups can be denied access to even search and find material, meaning that you can have competing clients on the same system without them being able to see or download each other's media, even if they have the links or the download links to do so. But you can have an editor that works with both clients, able to view everything. Over time, we're also able to manipulate these access control lists, either with our rules engines or programmatically, so you can open up or close down media as your business rules need to do so. As an admin, I obviously have complete access not just to the functionalities but all the media on the system. So I have access to all these functions in this admin interface. So I can manipulate some of the rules that are going on there. The audit tool is an app which allows me to get certain reporting. I have access to setting up NLEs. But one of the most important things also is our transcoder. In the core solution, we have a very capable built-in transcoder. It has very comprehensive format support, not just for video, but also images and audio files, and these can be defined within the interface. The types of formats that we support are sort of major broadcast and professional formats, as well as transcoding to other formats that are typically used for output, playout, distributed web and mobile devices. It also enables us to create poster frames and thumbnails of certain types of media, and does some media analysis and some quality control as materials going through the system. Files not capable of being transcoded are still stored in the system, they're just not transcoded in any way. And this GUI lets us set up a number of transcode profiles that can be used throughout the system. There's not many here on this demo system, but for instance I have the low res that's used throughout for creating the proxy image that's used for showing in the web interface the media as it comes through. So you might be wondering how we get files in and out of the system, and there's several ways of doing so. We have a concept of storages, which I'll come back to. We also have a web-based uploader, we allow import from NLEs, and we have our API. Now the storages are mappings to folders, and these can be local folders on the system. They could be from a NAS or from a SAN that's attached to this service that Portal's residing on, and a range of other devices that we constantly monitor and track files. I have a number of storages listed here, and I can see an overview of the storage use of those storages. So if I go in and have a look at the detail on one of them, I can see that I can set capacities, limits on usage, some scanning parameters, types of access to the storage, and how files on it are importable. In this particular storage, I have the importable flag set, so I'm allowed to import files from it, but I don't auto-ingest from it. The auto-ingest flag allows you to set up drop folder functionality, which will import any file that's placed on this storage automatically into the system, including sidecar XML. So you can set up drop folders for your different clients or for different parts of your network, and people could drop files in there, and it automatically comes into the system. We also use storages as destinations for files coming into the system from the uploader, NLEs and our API to store in there. Going back to the overview.
Excuse me, Tim, I do have one question from someone that's come in. They ask, is it possible to see what reports are available via the audit tool?
Sure. Shall I do that now, or shall I do it later on?
Maybe make a note of it and do it later on.
Yeah, sure. That's no problem. I can do that. Yeah, so as I was saying, the storage groups allow me to group the storage into different tiers and different ways, and then I can apply rules on that to say maybe a file needs to be on 2 groups, maybe the file needs to be on 2 storages within the group, and so forth. And those rules can be set up using one of the plugins, or they can be set up using the API. Just making a note to show the audit tool. So, once we have the storages set up, it's been scanning, we get an overview of the files on the system. And here we can see a listing of all the files that are on this storage. Some of them are imported, these will show up green, some of them are not imported. The not imported ones don't have item IDs associated with them, but we could soon change that from this interface by clicking and saying import, at which point it will ask us to enter some metadata. I'm not going to do that right now, but obviously this is a screen for admin users. Other users do have their own access to this import from storage, and this will show all the files that that particular user has access to based upon the rules, the functionality in the system and what they've been given. So this is personal to that user. And again, we can go in there and select a number of files and say import these files, fill out the metadata, and then it will start being ingested into the system. Another way that we can get material in is through the uploader. And this lets us drag and drop with this HTML5 interface and upload material. With older browsers, we have a Java-based uploader, but with modern web browsers, we can have this drag and drop functionality and use HTML5, which is quite quick for uploading. This file, and then in the background, will be placed on a storage, and a job will be created.
I have another question, Tim, for you.
Sure.
It says, can an LTO library be used as a storage location?
We have some integration with different libraries, so yes is the answer to that. It depends on the actual library itself and how the integration works, but yes, we can use that for archive. Okay,
and then another question, can the systems be replicated across different sites, i.e. same data in one location federated to another geographically different location, thinking of the same data hosted in different countries?
It can with the enterprise version of this. This is the core version, which has the basic facilities, but with the enterprise version, we do have the ability to do exactly that.
Thanks, Tim.
No problem. So yes, things happening within the system create jobs, and examples of jobs are ingests, transcodes, copying moving files, creating thumbnails, exporting files out, and a variety of other things happening. The most interesting one for us right now is the import that just happened. So a particular job goes through a number of steps depending on the job type. The import is typically one of the longest job steps, and this particular job is showing us that it went through and performed a media check using the transcoder, analyzing the type of file, seeing whether it can be transcoded. In this case, it's a movie, so it could be transcoded into several different videos automatically. We extract any metadata that's within the file that we need to do. We check the transcode, and then we move the files to the destination storages as the rules are set. And then finally, we'll create an item that references all those files and the metadata. So this is the item that I've just uploaded. We can go into the Formats tab, and we can see the individual files that have been created, and the original one here that is referenced. They've all ended up on the nearline storage. They're all available for download. This is a very secure link, so you can't actually share it with anyone, and they can be deleted if they wanted to be. We can also manually transcode to different formats that are set up in the system. Now, as I was saying earlier, the low res enables us to create a preview of the video. And on my system, locally, this is obviously very smooth. I'm not sure how it will do across GoToMeeting, but the player allows us to do frame accurate forward and back, stepping through individual frames. We can scrub. There, it's probably easier for you to see me stepping forwards and backwards. We have JKL key bindings, so I can play forward at multiple speeds. It also allows in Safari us to play backwards, and this enables us to get a good preview over the media itself. And we can even create poster frames from here and thumbnails. Once the media is being uploaded, we automatically extract thumbnails. We do some analysis on the media. There's not many changes within this piece of media because it's relatively short, but we'll be able to see the poster frame that I've manually created here, and this can be downloaded as needed. We see a history of what's happened to the item itself, including the import and the thumbnails being created. And we also get to manipulate the access rights. If, for instance, you wanted to do that manually, you can do it through here. We can add, let's say, the user Tim to be able to read. Of course, this can be done automatically as well using our API or with one of the apps that we have that will analyze metadata and set access rights on that. And finally, we have metadata. Obviously, media asset management, metadata is a very important thing we have here. So we have the ability to create metadata schemas and forms and enter information against an item. This could have been pre-populated by sidecar XMLs. We have the ability to extract some of the metadata from different file formats, such as XMP, and some other data, and put that in there. But the metadata support is very important. So for metadata, we have a built-in metadata schema editor called the Metadata Management. Now, as an admin, I've also got access to this. And it allows me to create metadata groups. Now, Cantemo Portal metadata groups are the highest level of abstraction of metadata. It is visually shown to users as a form, like you just seen, but it can be a lot more advanced and have hidden fields, access controls on it. We can have metadata groups within metadata groups, which is shown as one form to the users. But the metadata group is this highest level, so I'll just open one now. And here we see the editor. On the left-hand side, we see a number of different field types, and these are the field types that we can use to create the metadata group. In the center, we have the actual visual representation of the metadata group, and then we have an attribute screen on the right-hand side. So if I say I want to create a new field, I can add one, and it automatically gets added to the field here. I can change the ordering of it if I want to, and then I can start working with this and changing attributes on it. Let's say I want to take a director in there. I can add default values, I can set a minimum length, I can set a description on it, I can say whether it's a sortable field in the interface and so forth. And I can even set ACLs on it to say who's allowed to edit it and who's allowed to view it. So I'll save that. Now, Tim, we have these different...
Sorry, Tim. We do have a number of questions that are coming in. It's probably best if we batch them up and let you finish through the demonstration and ask them at the end, because I think it would take quite a while to get through each one.
Sure.
So I hope that's okay with everyone, but we do have them all here, so keep your questions coming in and we'll get to them as soon as we can.
Okay, yeah, we'll answer those at the end, I think. Leave some time.
Exactly.
So yeah, I was saying that you can have a number of different field types, like choice fields. For instance, this language field is a choice field, and you can choose between all the different languages that we have set up here. And typically, you would only want to enter that once. The system can deal with multiple metadata groups. You can have multiple metadata groups set by user group and so forth. Different media can have different groups that are needed. But something like a language field, a country field or something like that, you would only want to enter it once. So that is set up as a reusable field that can be dragged into different metadata groups. We also have metadata groups and metadata groups, as I said, and you can drag those into the schema editor. We have one set here, which is the actor group. And this is set, if you can see, in the attributes as a reference group. Now what this means is that in another part of the interface, which is designed for librarians and other types of user, they can set up actors. It could be football players, it could be directors, it could be any entity which you don't often change, but you want a directory of. But you can set those up within the system. So as a reference group, I can set up a number of actors, and then when I'm using the metadata group, I can then apply that actor in there. If it's not a reference group, I can set multiple actors, but I have to type them out each time. So if I go back to the system and I reload the page, I now see that I have my director in there. So I'm going to set myself as the director, and just to show you the metadata group with the metadata group functionality, I have a number of actors set up. I'll add Danny Glover. And that will then apply that metadata group into the metadata there. So once we have metadata in the system against the items, it's getting indexed in the background, and we can now take advantage of that. You might have seen the search form when we first logged in. This is a keyword search that utilizes underneath the Enterprise Solar search engine. And it's capable of extracting all the metadata from the items. It understands our metadata groups and schemas. It can create search suggestions based upon the keywords. And it can even understand that we have timed metadata, so metadata with distinct in and out points against the media. So for example, if I do a search for clouds, it should return 2 of the clouds on the system. If I do a search for man, it will return some men as well. Now it's also returned some clouds, so if I go into the item and have a look why, I can actually see in the description field there's man written in there, so that's why it's appearing on there. Now perhaps we want to actually narrow down the search and just search for anything that has man in the description, and for that we have advanced search, which again uses the metadata schema, and we can have multiples of those and choose between them. But on this system we have this main one, and we can say I want to search for man in the description, which is slightly different than removing man and putting it in here, because there is one item in the system, this man smiling, that doesn't actually have that in the description field. The advanced search, we can also add criteria, so we can say I want the title to be set to this, I want the media type to be video or audio or whatever, I want a certain duration, I want the width to be over a certain dimension, and so forth. I want the owner to be this user. So as an example, I could say I want the video codec to be H.264 and do the search. So that will return all the media that the original file was H.264 in the codec, which is good. In the system, obviously, quite often you want to use the same search over and over again to match new media as it's coming in, and for that we have save searches. So we can go in and say, I want to save this as H.264. The save search is now in the system, and it can actually be shared amongst other users as well, either within the same group or within across the system. I have 2 save searches H.264 now. Both will bring back the search that you just saw, and we can then get that constantly updating as new media comes in and matching that and build up workflows around that. It saves the metadata, but the list of items within it changes. So what happens if we wanted it the other way around? We want the number of items to be the same or manually picked, but the metadata within them or whatever the contents of those items changing. Well, we can also do that. We can go into the system, do a search, select some items from these pods. We can have a look through them from the keyframes, and then we could say add to collection. And I'll create a new collection rather than adding them to an existing one. Transport. Again, ACLs allow us to narrow down who can see that collection. And if we go straight there, we see the 4 items that I've picked. We can apply metadata on the collection from here. So perhaps you have a grouping of material that is needs particularly to come back on a search hit or whatever. You can enter the metadata in with our normal metadata schema. We can also do exports of the media from here. We can do actions on the collection. And again, we can change the access rights, so we can say who's allowed to see this and who's not allowed to see material contained within the collection. Now the collection, you manually add the items in, but any metadata within them can change, so it's slightly different to the search interface. Obviously, working around the system, you want to collect items as you go, and for that we have a bin down here. So if I add to the bin here, we can see that it gets updated and we have an item in there. We can also drag material down into the bin and go around and build up a temporary collection. Now this bin is personal to me. It's my bin. I can't share it with anyone. It's on every page, so even if I go into the search page, it's still always there. So I can then say, okay, then I want to take that one in there as well. And this enables us in different applications that we're writing and creating to then take those items, a bit like a shopping cart. One of the apps that takes advantage of this is our Premiere Pro integration. So if I fire up Premiere, we have our integration underlying this as a panel which can be loaded up into the application itself. And from here we can do some of the actions that we can do in the web interface without actually leaving Premiere. For example, we can do a search, which will bring back the same material. We can do the same search for MAM, brings back some material, and we can open material into there. We can also see our media bin. And we can drag that to the timeline and use it within our edit. We also have access to the shared storages that are set up in the system. Now this might obviously be SAN-backed storage, fast storage for editing, or whatever, or a simple NFS share like I have right here. But this enables us to also get material in from here and drag it to the timeline and use it within the system. Now, searching and bringing things in is obviously very easy. We also have the round trip out again using an export functionality. We render using Premiere Pro renderer, and we have this export. So we can choose which export preset we use that's built into Premiere. We choose where it ends up on the system. We can give it a file name, edits of, and again we see our metadata schema, so we can put in fields there and edit the metadata as we need. If I clicked export, what it will happen is that it renders the media locally and then starts moving the file. I'm not going to do that because of time constraints, but the round trip will happen and the material will get imported just as I used the uploader or any of the other file import methods. So that was our Premiere Pro integration, and a quick overview of that. Not all users are obviously have access to NLEs, or have the experience to use NLEs, pretty much like myself. Not all machines are capable, and not all machines are actually in the office to have access to that fast shared storage. So for that, we have a rough cut editing app. And with this interface, what you can see is that we have a source panel where we can find material. We have 2 players, one for viewing the timeline that we're building. And we also have the timeline down here. So again, I can search, build up material. A little bit wider. I can say, yeah, I want to use that. I'm going to have an imp. So what I'm doing there is I'm setting an in point and an out point, and then I can send that to the timeline by using a key binding. I can also use the buttons here, and so there's a number of other ways to add it to the timeline. But what it gives me is the ability to add a short part of that clip to the timeline and then preview it. Now we have the key bindings again. It uses the same player as in the item page, so it's frame accurate and allows us to do edits and build up from the media bin. We can bring in material, we can set an in point, we can set an out point, we can even drag it on the timeline itself and change the in and out as we want. and we can continue to build up. And we get to see the actual edit within here. So a typical workflow would be, we'll be going around the system, we'll be doing searches. Again, we'll may search for things like transport or MAM in the system, collecting material. Maybe somebody else has collected the material into a collection, maybe it's in the bin. We'll go manage rough cut editor, search or drag things in to the timeline, and save down a sequence, which I'm going to call demo. So I'm going to bring in this speedboat. Let's do a quick edit. And that got added to the end there. And just one more for luck. Add that to the end. Preview that. And that can then be saved down. And we can either render that locally into one of the transcode profiles and build up the clip from that. We can show it in the search results page. It shows here, so other users can then open that and change it as they want or create new versions of it. Or what we can do with this sequence is then take it into Final Cut 10 with our Final Cut 10 integration. So if I switch to Final Cut 10, what we can see here is the edit that I just did. I'll just skip to a part with no audio. And that's got in the exact edits that I did within the rough cut editor. Obviously the rough cut editor is frame accurate, so we get frame accurate cuts. But now I'm in the MLE, I can do dissolves and wipes and better edits and view it on a broadcast monitor and that kind of thing. What about if we want to bring in more material? Well, that's possible as well. Maybe we'll want to get an outro. I happen to have one on the system. I can also bring that in. And there we go. So I could take the outro now and put it into the edit. The integration with Final Cut 10 also allows us to take the rendered material and send it to Portal. So not only can we get material in, the same as Premiere, we can get material out. And that will render down locally and then move the file across. Again, with a time constraint, so I'm not going to let you sit here and watch me rendering out edits and clips. But what will happen is the material gets ingested into the system. It goes through the same steps of being transcoded in different formats, metadata being extracted, and so forth. Now, there's many cases where you want to not just edit in there, but you want to perhaps create subclips. You might want to create annotations of the media, to create metadata with sections of the media. You might want to pick out certain sections such as goals and points being scored. You might have talents on the screen. You might have certain things happening. And to mark those areas, we have our annotation tool. So if I find a clip that's long enough, and this one's 3 minutes long, I can open this up in our annotation tool. I'm going to close the media bin because we don't need it. We're just going to operate on the one clip. And here we have a player, again, frame accurate player. We have a timeline with nothing in it at the moment because there's no annotations. And then we're going to have an annotation list. So if I go through the material, I can create endpoints, scrub through, play back. I can use all the key bindings that you'd expect to use to find the out point that I want to then set. So I'm going to set an out point there, and I can say, right, this is jellyfish. Fish spelled correctly, and save that as an annotation against that particular in and out point on the system. And I can scrub through here, and let's find it right there. In points. Yeah, I went past it. There we go. Outs points. Fish close up. We even have the ability to have multiple tracks. So you could say, I want an in point there, and an out point here, and let's say water. So I can't think of anything better. And that will save that. In the background, again, our Solar search engine is indexing all of this as metadata. I've saved it so I can do a search for jellyfish in this quick search bar up here. And that will bring back our secret world clip. If I go into the secret world clip, there's no jellyfish keyword here or anywhere else except within that timed media. And I can search for any number of the keywords I've entered in there. If I open up the annotation tool against this item again, I can select the jellyfish. And you can see that I have the full metadata in there. So I could add quite a lot of metadata, particularly if I have a very large schema, which we do allow. Now, obviously, once you've added this, there's a lot of possibilities for searching and marking clips and media reuse and being able to make the most of your archive. But another important part is to be able to take those annotations, maybe by editors, maybe by your director or something, and take them into your NLE. And we can do that straight into Final Cut. So we see our secret world clip. We see the fish close up. We see a jellyfish. And we see the water that I have created. And of course you can go on from there and create edit and so forth. So that's a good overview, I think, and quick overview in the time that we have of the annotation tool, some of our integration with Final Cut Pro 10, Premiere Pro, and the Rough Cut Editor, and some of the basics. So I will quickly go into the admin interface and show you the audit tool, because there was a request for that. So as I was saying before, the audit tool allows us to create logs of what's actually happened on the system. This is my demo system, so I'll go into create an ingest log. And this lets us build up this list of what's happened for ingests. I can set a date frame on it. I can then export that. I can print it out, so I can save it as an Excel spreadsheet and get a whole list of what's going on there, as well as getting a preview in here. You can use the audit tool to create your own reports as you want on a number of different things. So collections, metadata groups, transcodes that have happened, ingests, jobs on the system, what users have been doing. So you can say, okay, then what has this user been Tim been doing, and then give it a period within the last 15 days and create a report like that. It ships with these reports pre-populated, so you have the basis of creating different reports that you might want. But yeah, the essence of it is that it analyzes what has happened within the system within a particular time period, and then you get that log, which can then be downloaded and analyzed. So perhaps media usage, perhaps media that's been exported somewhere, and so forth. Shall we go across into the other questions, Mark?
We should, Tim. That would be great. There's been a number of questions about Avid environment and ISIS. I was wondering if you could talk about that generally. Cantemo plans to support Avid and ISIS via API, etc.
Jimmy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to take this one?
Yes, I could. In terms of Avid integration, we are actually currently have just started to work on that. So in a future release, there will be an integration with Avid Media Composer, but it will be limited to whatever is possible to do in Avid Media Composer, and so it will not be as seamless as Final Cut or the Adobe integration, but we will have something in the future. In terms of ISIS, from our standpoint, integrating with media composers that actually sit on an ISIS is actually simpler than integrating with standalone media composers. So that actually makes it simpler for us. But we'll try to cover a good workflow with standalone media composers as well.
And via the API, can users develop their own interfaces, functionality for access to media, or is this something that you'd be doing yourselves?
That is totally what our API is designed for. When we first set out to create Portal, we basically thought, right, the main thing that we need to make sure is that people aren't locked in and the media is locked into the system. It needs to be extensible, it needs to be able to grow, and they need to get access to absolutely everything, including the media and the metadata, and that has to come through the API. And if we have that API there, then we use it ourselves to create everything. And the apps that we were showing, the NLE integration and everything, uses the same API that customers have access to themselves.
Thanks. The next question is, what transcoder is used and how customizable is it?
The transcoder we use is from Vidaspine, another Swedish company, and it uses the main concept codecs. So it also uses some other abilities for thumbnails generation and that kind of stuff. I think it's using Image Magic to do that. So all the codecs that main concept uses, we can use. With the enterprise solution, it's quite easy to add in extra transcode farms and nodes as you need. If you wanted that as well.
Yep. Does the user interface support, the web user interface support watermarking for security?
That is a very good question. Currently, we actually watermark it ourselves on all the demo systems. So I'm running with a license that doesn't watermark my media for doing this demo, but we have a Cantemo watermark in there. We haven't actually added the possibility right now of a third party adding a watermark in there, but I'm sure we can come to something where we could do that.
Yeah. So the user should come to you with more specific requirements of how it should work and talk to you about how to implement it.
I understand the requirement. It's just that it would be good to get the dialogue going with the customer and work there. I mean, the capabilities are there. It's just that the API hasn't been created for a user to put their own watermark in. But,
someone else asks, I'm curious what hardware takes care of the transcoding, etc. And so what's the local machine that you're running?
On this particular demo, I'm running off a MacBook Pro, and I have gigabit network to a VMware box, which is my personal server. On the VMware box, I'm running a RAID array and a SSD set. The system itself is running on SSDs. The RAID array is running Open Indiana, ZFS, and that's mapped through using NFS on the internal VMware network. The transcoder is also running on the same SSD and dragging the files over the NFS share. So the transcoder on the core system, I mean, the core system can start quite small with 5 users, and it's designed to all run on one box. Obviously, it has to be multi-core because you want to be able to do searches at the same time that you're doing transcodes. But as you grow and as the needs grow, then we can work with you and spread that load across multiple machines. But yeah, multi-core machines, and then start going up from there.
Thank you. Does the user group management allow Windows Active Directory integration?
We actually have an app for doing that, a third-party app, because not everybody needs that in our core product. So we decided, right, we'll put that into a separate purchase that you can purchase. But yes, that capability is available.
Okay. I've got a specific Premier question. How do adding fields at metadata manager level work with Adobe's XMP to expose this in the metadata panel of Premier?
Right. So when I exported from Premier, if I bring up Premier right now, you probably saw the export panel and you saw this. This is not using the Adobe XMP metadata form. If you're using Adobe XMP metadata, it will obviously put that into the file itself in most circumstances, and then we can read that out and we can do transforms on that XMP and get it into the metadata schema that you set up in the system. If you're doing it here, it doesn't burn it into the file itself. It stores it in the item, which has references to the metadata and has references to the item. So it's not quite the same thing. And this is an embedded render of the metadata schema that was shown in the web interface.
Next question was, how does search handle TGA file sequences? Does each frame file appear in the search results, or are files within the sequence grouped together to display the one clip?
With sequences, basically what happens is on import, all the files are lumped together. So if you've got sequential files, it will go, okay, then this is an image sequence, this is one piece of media. I will take it through the renderer and create the low-res proxy as one material, and then I'll do the thumbnail generation on that. So it stores the individual files because that's your original media, but all the created files and everything from that are one file, one low-res.
Okay. Question is, how does Cantemo handle shared projects? Is media associated to a project in any way, or is there no linking between the two? I'm not sure if that's clear enough.
Yeah, that is actually something that's being worked on at the moment, just before NAB, because we are expanding our project support quite a lot, not only just internally in the system, but also with the integration with NLEs to work with their project file formats and so forth. And I will be happy to discuss that offline because it's quite a large subject.
Yes.
But better support is coming. You can use it collections at the moment. You can group material like that, and collections are ordered and so forth. We have sequences, but there's going to be much greater capabilities in the next month.
Okay. Does the system support R3D files, including the metadata? So I guess it's RED format support.
I must admit, I'm not the person that works on the transcoder the most. Jimmy, do you know whether it's supporting
Yeah, hello, Jimmy here. I'm not 100% sure about the metadata that comes with your red files, but we can bring in the red files using our current transcoder. However, I'm not sure if it's available in the standard edition or only in the enterprise edition. Please contact us later out so we can figure out the details. And I think red is also a priced additional codec, so to say. So there's the response is yes, you can bring in red. About the metadata, I'm not sure at the moment if you can bring that in, if it follows, so to speak.
Okay. If you have further questions that aren't answered specifically here or explicitly enough, then please don't hesitate to email me, Mark, at Digistore, and I can certainly make sure that we either set up a correspondence or get those responses directly to them, to Cantemo, so that we can get responses back to you. Another question, avid question, but it's probably incorporated into the previous answer. Is there an option to transcode into DNxHT native avid codec?
Yes, both DNxHT 185 and 225, and there's even another bit rates, but we support all the DNxHT bit rates.
Great.
So yes, we do.
Final Cut Pro 7 plugin still supported?
Yes, Final Cut 7 is still supported, and we also still support Final Cut 6 actually.
Okay.
There's actually a setting for that on the settings page if you want to have Final Cut 6 compatibility.
Question about archive interfaces. LTO drives were mentioned. What about larger scale archives controlled by middleware?
Well, thing is, I mean, all tape libraries are controlled by something. I mean, nobody uses the tape library just directly, so to speak. So we can't control any tape library directly. But there is a press store integration that is made by our German partner, MAM Systems. So if you want to use press store, you can do that. And I think they're going to be releasing that very shortly. And especially with archive interfaces, now we come to talk about like how you can extend the solution yourself. And if there is something that is not already exists, you can build it yourself. And I think there is one of our system integrators that has built support for IBM TSM as well. Other than that, all of it still needs to be built, so to speak. But hey, that's what the extensible interface is for, and building support for yet another archive system is actually not that difficult. It's not really rocket science.
Yes. Does the system support management of still images and audio files?
Oh yes, still images. We try to support everything we come across, which means if you actually find an image file that is not supported, please send it to us. And we have extensive support for audio as well, as one of our customers is actually a radio station. So same thing with audio. Obviously, the primary focus from the beginning was video, but most of the audio formats that you can think of are supported as well.
Great. Other online editors like Smoke on Mac or Flame, are you looking at those as well?
We are looking at that, especially Smoke, but where we see currently the most interest is obviously Avid Media Composer. Even though it is a difficult task, it is the next obvious step. And also we're looking at other Adobe applications and which one would complement the current workflow best, so to speak.
Yes. Will DPX be supported?
DPX is currently supported in the Enterprise Edition.
A question on pricing in terms of charging. Do you charge by node? Maybe you can give a brief overview of the pricing model.
No, we don't really charge by nodes. However, the standard systems are typically one node, even though it can be a large node. But the pricing model is typically by amount of users.
Mm-hmm.
And by the apps that you add, that we sell separately, obviously.
Yeah. And it's obviously best to speak to Digistor about your specific configuration, number of users, of file formats, how it's likely to be expanded, and the configuration that's needed to support it. And we can certainly provide you accurate pricing from there. Is there ProRes codec support?
Yes, both encode and decode. Default in the product, there is a decode. And with an extra small charge, that is ProRes encode as well.
Okay. Someone asked, when will you be able to ingest Final Cut Pro X projects without flattening the file, I guess, into a single media file? Is that something that you're looking at?
For NAB, this NAB.
Okay. Is there plans for a dashboard showing transcodes in process? I think that exists, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, you have the jobs overview, and you can see what is going on with the transcodes and how far they're going. As an admin, you get the same thing as a user. If as a normal user, you've kicked off, you have your own job page, so you can see the status of transcodes and how far they're going. There, yes.
Okay, great.
It is actually nicely continuously updated if you start a job.
And you can also filter it down by job type.
Okay. Can you use DRM widevine encoding and transcoding? Does that mean anything to you guys?
Could you repeat the question, please?
It says, can you use DRM widevine encoding and transcoding?
I think we are beyond what I know about the transcoder at this point in time. I don't know, but I know there's some DRM capabilities. But I'm afraid you need to submit your question by email. We take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because this is integrating with a third-party DRM solution. Yeah, it would be best to answer that over email. But there could be possibly some support for doing that, because if you remember, I had the job steps. You can integrate in with the job steps, different steps within the system. Like if you wanted to send something off to Serify, or you want to integrate with something else, it is possible. But I don't know their API or how their product works.
Okay. Someone asked, when you search for jellyfish, the resulting files didn't seem to show how they matched the search criterion. You manually went into the annotate tool to see this. How did you know to do that?
I know to do that by experience. With the next version of the annotation tool, you're going to see within the item page, within this page, an annotations tab, which will actually list all the annotations and the metadata. So you'll be able to see it within that part of the interface. So that is a shortcoming, and that is in the next release.
Good questions, aren't they?
Yeah.
Can DPX support be purchased separately for Cantemo Portal? I thought
for the standard or the Enterprise Edition.
I guess they mean for the standard, because it's included in the Enterprise. Is it?
I think it's an extra on the Enterprise, but to be honest, I think we're commercially getting so detailed that we should take that question offline.
Okay. I think we should wind up as well. There are a couple more questions, but many of them are variations on things that we've already asked and are very detailed. I know it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning for you guys in Sweden. Is that correct?
Almost.
Almost 1 o'clock in the morning. So I want to thank everyone for attending, and thank you, Jimmy and Tim, specifically for being so patient and so late. And we do look forward to receiving more questions, and look forward for hearing from you and how we can help you with Cantemo Portal moving forward. I think I'd like to wind up for now. Jimmy or Tim, do you have any other concluding comments?
No,
Okay. That was short and brief.
For everyone's time.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Digistor for having us here.
All right, that's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. We'll end the broadcast now.